They say some paintings watch you when the lights go out. Daniel Foster never believed that. He thought art was silent, lifeless brushstrokes trapped on canvas. But on his third night in the apartment, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the silence broke. A soft sound filled the room. Not wind, not rain. A quiet, trembling sob. Daniel's breath caught as he realized the truth. The crying wasn't coming from the apartment, it was coming from the painting. Daniel stood there, frozen, waiting for the sound to stop. His mind searched for logic. Old pipes, bad insulation, a neighbor upstairs, anything that made sense. But the crying returned, softer now, as if the woman in the painting was trying not to be heard. Daniel's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He had restored dozens of damaged artworks before, cracks, mold, water stains, but never grief, never pain that sounded so real. At 2:17 a.m., Daniel stepped closer. His flashlight trembled in his hand. That was when he saw it. A tear forming where dry paint should be. It shimmered, heavy and warm, before sliding down the woman's cheek. Daniel whispered to himself that he was imagining it. But imagination doesn't drip onto the floor. And when the tear fell, the crying stopped, like the painting had finally been heard. Daniel turned away for just a moment, his chest tight with panic. When he looked back, the woman's eyes were open, not painted open, watching. The crying had vanished, replaced by a crushing silence. Daniel felt an unshakable certainty crawl into his bones. The painting wasn't alive, it was remembering, and whatever it remembered was staring directly at him. The liquid was warm, human. Daniel pulled his hand back in shock as a thought surfaced, slow, terrifying, unavoidable. This painting wasn't cursed, it was trapped with a memory that refused to stay buried. As Daniel stood up, the woman's lips curved into the faintest smile. Not happiness, gratitude, because after all these years, someone had finally noticed her pain.
As Daniel picked up the letter, his pulse quickened. The handwriting was delicate, almost pleading. "I am trapped. Forgive me," it read. He felt a shiver crawl down his spine. This wasn't just a painting crying at night. Someone had poured their soul into it. Memories, guilt, a life suspended between canvas and reality. Daniel realized the woman wasn't asking to be saved. She was begging to be remembered. Daniel moved slowly, almost unwillingly, toward the painting. The letter burned in his hand. Every step felt heavier than the last. The woman's eyes seemed to follow him, not just observing, but expecting. He thought he understood what she wanted. He didn't, and the silence around him pressed like a weight, reminding him that curiosity often invites danger. Daniel's mind raced. How could a painting hold a memory? How could grief manifest as a sob that dripped like rain? His logical mind refused to answer, but his senses screamed the truth. The woman had lived, had suffered, and somehow part of her had fused with the paint. He wasn't imagining it. He was witnessing a soul in suspension, waiting for someone to understand. Behind the canvas, Daniel found it, a photograph. The woman's eyes stared at him with the same sorrow he had seen in the painting. A cold knot formed in his stomach. This wasn't imagination. This was evidence. Someone had vanished, left only a memory. And this apartment, this painting, was the only witness. Daniel knew then that he had stepped into a story older than the walls themselves. The crying returned, louder this time, echoing through the apartment. Daniel could feel it vibrating in the floor beneath him. Not anger, not malice. Sadness. A life unclaimed. A story unfinished. He realized the woman had been trying to reach someone, anyone, through time, through paint. And now, Daniel was that someone. The apartment had never been empty. It had been waiting for him. Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept turning the letter and photograph in his hands, searching for answers. Every creak of the apartment, every drop of rain felt amplified. The crying had stopped, but he could still feel it, like a pulse vibrating in the walls. He realized with a chill that the woman's memory wasn't quiet. It was patient, waiting for him to uncover what had been hidden for decades. Daniel's fingers hovered over the photograph. The eyes, the same sorrowful eyes, stared back, accusing and pleading at the same time. He swallowed hard, realizing that the painting hadn't been crying for years of neglect. It had been crying for a life stolen, for a secret buried in silence. He could almost hear her whisper, "Find me." But no sound came, only the oppressive weight of the apartment. And then it happened. A soft creak from the hallway. Daniel froze. His flashlight trembled in his hand. The woman's eyes widened as if acknowledging the sound. A whisper, almost imperceptible, brushed against his ear. "Daniel?" He spun around, heart pounding. The apartment was empty, yet he knew it had never been alone.
The whisper lingered, almost teasing him, pulling him toward the living room. Every rational thought screamed to leave, to run, but curiosity rooted him in place. Daniel's mind teetered on the edge between fear and obsession. The shadows seemed to pulse, stretching toward him like fingers, guiding him back to the painting. He realized then that he had crossed a line. There was no turning back.
Daniel fell to his knees. The tear puddle shimmered, mirroring the eyes that watched him. He felt a connection, not just to a painting, but to a life trapped within it. The crying resumed, louder, sharper, more urgent. He could feel her grief searing through the apartment, through him, demanding acknowledgment. He understood now. She hadn't just been waiting for someone to notice. She had been waiting for him. As Daniel stared, the apartment seemed to shift. Shadows deepened. Walls whispered memories. Suddenly, he saw her. Not fully, but a flicker. A woman in black, pale and trembling, reaching out as if caught between worlds. The tears on the painting mirrored real ones. Daniel realized he was witnessing fragments of a life stolen long ago. The apartment wasn't haunted by a ghost. It was haunted by a memory demanding justice. Images flashed in Daniel's mind. The woman laughing in sunlight, turning to tears as something unseen tore through her world. He felt her fear, her sorrow, her longing. Every sob, every tear he had heard now made sense. The painting wasn't just crying, it was reliving her pain. Daniel understood that each night she replayed her final hours, hoping someone would see her story and remember her for who she truly was. Daniel reached toward the painting, instinctively, almost hypnotized. The hand in the canvas seemed to move, reaching, pleading. A chill ran down his spine. He realized the painting didn't just hold her memory, it interacted with him, tested him, challenged him to understand. Fear clawed at his chest, but empathy held him there. He had to see the truth, no matter what it cost him. The room pulsed with tension. The crying returned, louder, mingling with faint whispers of past horrors. Daniel's heart pounded as fleeting images of shadowy figures crossed his vision. He could feel the woman's terror, the injustice done to her. The apartment had become a vessel, channeling her last moments for him to witness. Each shadow, each tear, each sob was a clue and a warning. Daniel's eyes fell on the corner of the painting's frame. Something was hidden behind it, a dark compartment, just barely ajar. His pulse raced. Every instinct screamed to leave, yet curiosity anchored him. The woman's eyes begged silently for discovery. She wasn't crying to scare him. She was crying to guide him,
to reveal the secret that had remained buried for decades, and Daniel knew that tonight he would uncover it.
Daniel's hands trembled as he pried open the hidden compartment. Inside, a small wooden box and several yellowed letters lay in silence, like relics frozen in time. The painting's eyes followed every movement, as if urging him onward. He knew that whatever lay inside would reveal the truth. Fear clawed at him, but he couldn't stop. She needed him to see.
Inside the box, Daniel found a locket and a note. The photograph showed the woman, young and vibrant, smiling faintly. The note was hurried, desperate. "Forgive me. They won't let me live. Remember me." Daniel's stomach turned. Someone had wanted her gone, and this apartment, the painting, was all that remained. The realization hit him. This was more than a haunting. It was a cry for justice.
Daniel's hands shook as he read the note again. The words burned into his mind. Someone had silenced her, and she had been trapped inside this painting ever since. Each tear, each sob, was a message to the world. Remember me. Don't let my story die. Daniel realized he wasn't just an observer anymore. He had become a witness, and perhaps the only hope she had left.
The apartment seemed to breathe around him. The crying returned, but this time it carried clarity, anger, sorrow, a plea. Daniel felt the weight of decades pressing on his shoulders. The painting wasn't just art anymore. It was a vessel for truth. And the more he understood, the closer he felt to the darkness that had claimed her life. Fear threatened to paralyze him, but the woman's gaze demanded action.
Among the letters and locket, Daniel found a newspaper clipping. A missing woman. Same face, same eyes. The date, decades ago. It was her. She had vanished, erased from the world, leaving only her memory trapped in oil and canvas. Daniel's chest tightened. Every fiber of his being screamed that the apartment, the painting, and this moment were intertwined. He had uncovered the past, but the story was far from over. The worst, he sensed, was yet to come. Daniel's eyes traced the words on the clipping again and again. The missing woman, the one trapped in the painting, had a life stolen, erased from history. The more he read, the heavier the apartment felt. Every shadow seemed alive, every whisper from the painting sharpened. He realized he wasn't just witnessing grief, he was stepping into a labyrinth of guilt and secrets that someone had desperately tried to bury.
Beneath the clipping, Daniel found more documents, handwritten notes, signatures, hints of a name tied to her disappearance. Fear gripped him as he pieced it together. Someone influential, someone who had silenced her, still cast a shadow over the present. The apartment whispered in confirmation, the painting's gaze growing more insistent, warning him that some truths came at a price.
The apartment shifted in ways Daniel couldn't explain. Shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting, moving closer. A sudden creak behind him made him spin. Empty hallway. But the feeling lingered. The air was thick with accusation. The painting watching, judging, urging him forward. He understood now that fear was part of the message. To truly see the truth, he had to confront the darkness.
Daniel stared into the woman's eyes. Each tear mirrored decades of pain. Her gaze wasn't asking for pity, it demanded action. Every sob he had heard, every shadow that crept along the floor, was a warning and a guide. The past had clawed its way into the present, and he could no longer turn away. He had become the only hope to unearth the truth someone had killed to hide. As Daniel sifted through the papers, he felt the weight of decades pressing on him. The woman's story, silenced for so long, now unfolded through his hands. Each tear on the painting seemed to echo the injustice done to her. He knew the path ahead was dangerous. Someone had tried to erase her. And now, following the painting's silent guidance, He had unknowingly stepped into a web of secrets and lies where the next revelation could change everything or destroy him.
Daniel pieced together the final clues. The handwriting, the notes, the signatures, they all pointed to one person, a name long forgotten, yet alive in the whispers of the apartment. The woman had been silenced by someone close to power, someone whose guilt had been buried beneath layers of time. The realization sent a shiver through Daniel. Justice had never been served, and the painting had been waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to uncover it. He read the name aloud in a whisper, afraid it might vanish if spoken too loudly. The air grew heavy. The apartment seemed to lean closer, the painting's eyes boring into him, as if confirming the truth. Daniel felt the full weight of what had been done. This was no ordinary crime. It had been calculated, hidden, and erased from history. And now he held the key to exposing it.
The crying returned, louder, almost deafening in its sorrow. Daniel's heart raced. He realized the woman's anguish wasn't just grief, it was warning him. Each shadow, each flicker of movement urged him toward a decision. The painting was more than a memory, it was a guide. And following it meant stepping deeper into danger, into the darkness that had claimed her life decades ago.
Daniel understood then. He wasn't just uncovering a story. He was confronting the consequences of a life stolen, the weight of secrets kept for decades. The woman's gaze demanded more than recognition. It demanded justice. Each sob, each tear, each flicker of shadow pushed him forward, warning him that the past could not stay hidden any longer. And he knew, to honor her, he had to finish what time had left unfinished. The documents revealed the full truth, the identity of the person who had silenced her. Daniel's hands shook as he read every line, piecing together the web of deceit and betrayal. The painting's tears fell in sympathy, mirroring the decades of sorrow trapped within. Daniel knew the next steps would be perilous, yet the connection was undeniable. The past demanded to be remembered, and tonight he would ensure it was. Daniel took a deep breath. The evidence was clear. The woman had been betrayed by someone she trusted, silenced and forgotten. The tears, the sobs, the shadows, they weren't just expressions of sorrow. They were a call for truth. As he held the locket, he felt the full weight of her life pressing on him. The apartment wasn't haunted. It was a witness, demanding that history be corrected. Daniel carefully replaced the locket. The glow from the painting shifted, softening, as if acknowledging his understanding. The woman's eyes, once full of anguish, now carried gratitude. He realized her cries had not been for revenge. They had been for remembrance, for someone to see her life, her suffering, and finally bear witness. And in that moment, he knew he had fulfilled her final plea. Daniel turned to leave. The crying had stopped. The apartment felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. The woman's memory, long trapped in the canvas, finally rested. He had faced fear, uncovered secrets, and given her the recognition she deserved. The painting no longer demanded attention. It simply existed, a silent guardian of a story now told. Daniel glanced back one last time. The face that had haunted his nights now looked at him with peace. A faint smile, almost imperceptible, confirmed what he had long suspected. The painting had not just cried for him, it had cried for justice, for recognition, for remembrance. And now its story would live on, untwisted by time or silence. As Daniel stepped out into the night, the apartment behind him fell silent. The painting hung still, tears gone, yet the memory remained alive in its canvas. He had seen the truth, felt the sorrow, and given it the witness it deserved. The crying painting would never forget, and neither would he. Some stories, he realized, are not meant to die. They are meant to be remembered. Always.